Dale Pryor had worked the Gulf for 22 years. He knew what a shrimp net felt like when it was full. That steady, heavy resistance as the winch worked against the weight of the catch. He knew what it felt like empty, the loose flutter of mesh through dark water. He knew the difference between a snag and a tangle, between dragging through soft mud and dragging through something harder. On the night of August 14th, he felt something he didn't have a word for. The net was pulling back. The Mary Ellen was a 60-foot wooden-hulled shrimper, older than most of Dale's crew, but better maintained than any of them. He'd inherited her from his father, the same way his father had inherited her before him. 3 generations of Pryors had worked the same shelf-edge coordinates, 60 miles south of Galveston, where the seafloor drops from 300 feet to over 3,000 in less than a mile. The shrimp stack up along that edge. So does whatever feeds on them. It was a standard August night. No moon, flat water, air thick with brine and diesel. His brother-in-law, Thomas, was below deck running through a poker hand on his phone. The deckhand, a young man named Keene, who'd worked the boat for 2 seasons, was eating a sandwich at the stern rail and watching the water for jellyfish. Nobody was watching the winch. Dale was watching the winch. That was how it always went on a night run. The others slept or ate or killed time between hauls. Dale watched the equipment because the equipment told you what the net felt like before the net cleared the water. The net had gone down at 10:40. 2 hours at trawl speed, dragging the shelf edge at depth. Standard procedure. The haul should have been good. August runs were always good along this stretch. But when Dale started the winch at 12:50, the tension gauge spiked into a range he'd never seen on this boat. Higher than a full haul, higher than a snag. Whatever the net had picked up weighed more than the net was designed to carry. He slowed the winch, waited. The tension held for 40 seconds, then released all at once. Not the way a snag releases, not that sudden snap and slack. It released evenly, completely, like something had simply let go. The net came up empty. Dale stood at the winch and looked at the mesh as it cleared the water. No shrimp, no bycatch, no debris. The net was clean in a way that wasn't natural. A 2-hour trawl along a productive shelf edge didn't come up clean. It came up full, or it came up tangled. It didn't come up like it had never touched the bottom. He told himself it had snagged something, released, and the catch had scattered. He told himself that was what happened. He started the winch back up to reset the trawl. That was when Keene said something from the stern. He didn't say it loud. He said it the way people say things when they're not sure they're seeing what they're seeing. Quiet, careful. The words coming out slow, like he was testing them. "Dale," Keene said. "Something's in the water." Dale walked to the stern rail and looked where Keene was looking. 40 feet off the port side, the water was moving wrong. Not whitecaps, not current. The surface was rising and falling in a slow, even pulse, like something breathing beneath it. Something so large that its respiration displaced the entire column of water above it. The pulse was maybe 20 feet across, and it was moving closer. Dale had seen whales breach before. He'd seen whale sharks drift alongside the boat in calm water, massive and slow and recognizable. He knew the shape of large things in the Gulf. He knew their silhouettes, their sounds, the way the water behaved around them. What rose alongside the Mary Ellen over the next 3 minutes did not have a silhouette he recognized. It came up slowly, not breaking the surface so much as arriving at it, like something that had decided to be there rather than something that had traveled there. The first thing visible was light, faint, blue-green, shifting in patterns beneath the surface, not the steady bioluminescence of a jellyfish or a deep-water fish. These patterns moved in sequences. They traveled from one side of the shape to the other, paused, reversed, repeated, precise, rhythmic in a way that didn't feel like biology. Then the shape itself. It was wide. That was the first thing. Wider than the boat. Wider than anything he'd prepared himself to see. It was organized wrong, like something that hadn't evolved to move forward and backward the way animals move, but radially, in all directions at once. Where a whale had a clear front and a clear back, this had no front he could identify. The part of it closest to the boat was a surface, flat, faintly translucent, covered in a regular grid of small raised structures, each one roughly the size of Dale's fist, each one moving independently of the others, not randomly, in response to something. To the hull vibration maybe, to the sound of his breathing, he didn't know which. Through the translucent sections, interior structures pulsed with the same blue-green light. Not organs, not anything he could match to anything he'd ever seen or read about. Structures that contracted and expanded in coordination with each other, in patterns that mirrored the light sequences on the outside. It was the size of the boat, larger maybe. He couldn't see where it ended to the north. Dale did not move. He did not call for Thomas. He did not reach for the radio. He stood at the rail and held the rail and looked at it. And the grid of structures on its surface flexed and stilled and flexed again. And he understood, in a way he could not explain and has never been able to explain, that it was doing the same thing to him. It stayed alongside the Mary Ellen for 22 minutes. It did not touch the hull. It did not create a wake. The displacement of its body in the water kept the deck gently unstable. A constant low roll that had no rhythm, that the boat's hull couldn't compensate for. Dale kept both hands on the rail. Keane sat down on the deck at some point and didn't stand back up. The boat's radio hissed static in a way Dale would spend 2 weeks trying to describe to a Coast Guard interviewer and fail. Neither of them spoke. At some point, the light sequences inside it slowed. The patterns spaced further apart. The flat anterior surface oriented away from the boat by degrees, tilting into the water without breaking the surface, without sound, without the kind of displacement that something that size should have made when it submerged. Then it was gone. The water was flat. The light was gone. The tension gauge on the winch read normal. Dale started the engine. He ran the Mary Ellen back toward Galveston at full throttle. Nets hauled in but not stowed. And he didn't stop until he hit the dock as the sun was coming up. He filed a Coast Guard report 3 days later. Whale strike, possible collision with unidentified debris. The hull showed no damage. The Coast Guard filed it as a near miss and closed it. Thomas, who'd slept through the whole thing, had nothing to add. Keane didn't come back for the next run. He didn't call to quit. He just didn't show up, and Dale didn't try to reach him. Dale ran the Mary Ellen alone for 2 more months. He didn't go back to the shelf edge. He worked the shallower coastal routes. Water he could see through, water with a bottom he could almost reach if he thought about it hard enough. He brought in lighter hauls and didn't explain why to anyone who asked. He listed the boat for sale in October. sold her in November to a buyer from Port Arthur who asked no questions. He works on land now, has for 3 years. He doesn't talk about August 14th, but he lives 40 miles from the coast, 40 miles further than he's ever lived from water in his life. And he's told his wife he's in no rush to close that distance. He still knows what it felt like when the net pulled back. He thinks about it more than he'd like.